Third use case, mashups. I think I don't have to explain what that's supposed to mean. You take two persons, maybe even persons which exist in real life, and you create a mashup, create a digital persona which doesn't exist in real life. So is this allowed? Well, obviously not. Obviously, you need consent of the people who, are part of this digital mashup. And again, you need consent if you do so. However, obviously, you remember we talked about that earlier. You only need consent if the person is recognizable. If the person, the digital new person which comes out of this mashup is actually still recognizable in this mashup. Right? So looking at this now, and only these are stills, obviously, and if that would happen in a moving image, that would be a totally different thing, which would have to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. However, if you look at Leonardo di Monroe, I would say you could still discern that this is Leonardo DiCaprio, right? And this could have been done, at least this very picture, this could have been done using, a good makeup artist, and he or she could come up with this result. And I think Leonardo is still recognizable in there, so he would have to give consent. With the other two pictures, I'm not so sure, actually. I'm not so sure if you would say, okay, I can recognize Tom Cruise or Leonardo DiCaprio or Will Smith in there. But as I said, consent is needed unless the person is still recognizable, and that's to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Right. There's the answer I just given. Okay. So what does this mean in practice? I promised you to explain stuff in a bit more detail. So I brought to you some examples which actually happened. However, they only happened like the manipulation we're using artificial intelligence, AI technology, actually happened. But I cannot say whether or not consent was given. So that part of the story I'm just telling, in the next few minutes is, fiction. But the actual case, the actual application of AI for the modifications, that took place. And you probably have heard of those cases anyway. First case, the brutalist. In the brutalist, we had the situation that Adrien Brody was hired to play the lead, and the lead is, as you might know, supposed to be an immigrant living in the USA, an immigrant coming from Hungary, and so this person had a strong Hungarian accent when speaking English, something like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he speaks English, right? And as you might know, the voice track of Adrien Brody was completely swapped with a new voice track, which was generated using AI, generated using Adrien Brody's voice, and giving him at the same time an Hungarian accent, which he was, capable of performing when he did his performance on screen while shooting. So this was the reality, and now we come to fiction. Let's say the producer just wanted to do just that, wanted to swap the voice track of Adrien Brody. And, actors being actors, Adrien Brody might just have said, no, I'm not giving consent. I'm not consenting to the changes. What would be the situation under the AI appendix? Here's the solution. Consent would be required on a normal basis because it's his voice performance, so it is kind of interfering with his personality. But however, we're talking post-production, we're talking digital changes, and as such, the adjustments made to accent and pronunciation, they are permitted without consent because, as we know, it was in the script. It was right there. It said in the script that Adrian Brody would have to speak with an Hungarian accent. So no consent needed. The producer could do as he pleased. Make sense? Yeah. Second example, Robert Zemeckis here. Again, the situation was, the real non-fictitious situation was that Tom Hanks and Robin Wright were hired to play a couple, which takes the lead in the movie, and I don't know if you have seen the film here. It's crossing like many years, so it's crossing basically the lifetime of the lead characters. When hiring the staff, it was clear in the script from the very beginning that the actors would play, a role being 20, being 30, being 50, being 70 years old. So that was right there in the script. With Robin Wright's contract, and now again the fictitious part, right? In Robin Wright's agreement for employment, there was consent right there. So Robin Wright said yes, and I agree that I will be modified, rejuvenated using AI technology, right? And come as it may, Tom has not given consent, right? So what does the producer do? What could he have done under the AI appendix? Again, we're talking digital changes. And again, we're talking significant changes, because obviously if you have a 70-year-old to look rejuvenated using AI to look like a 20-year-old, that's a significant change to his appearance, I'd say. And so also Tom would have to accept that this significant digital change would take place without him giving express consent to that. Why is that? Because obviously it was in the script. He knew. Yeah, he knew that this was going to happen, so he cannot say no, and he cannot expect consent to have been, to deny consent. Case study number 3, we're on the finish line. Not yet quite, but case study number 3, partial embodiment, like a complete unknown. Bob Dylan, as he is depicted by Timothée Chalamet, he's riding he's doing a lot of motorcycle riding in the movie. And obviously this is kind of dangerous, especially some scenes. So the production chose to use a stuntman, do the filming, do the shooting, and they wanted to superimpose the head of Timothée Chalamet on the body of a stuntman while riding the motorcycle, right? And again, the fictitious part, Timothée has not given consent, and he is saying no to those changes because he hates AI, and he says, no, I'm not giving consent. I don't want to have this. No consent. What was the producer to do? What could the producer have done under the AI appendix? Again, consent required, and as it is at least a partial embodiment, right? Consent was needed. So no actions without consent of Timothée Chalamet, right? However, Timothée Chalamet denied consent. Was he able to deny consent? Was he in a position to deny consent? And then the answer is no, he wasn't. Because these were stunt scenes, these were dangerous scenes, so these fall under the express exception in the AI appendix. And he was not in a position to refuse giving consent. He might, maybe, have refused to give consent if he would have been in a former life like a professional a motorcycle racer. So he might have said, like, look, I can do this. I'm a professional. But as he did not give like a reasonable explanation for his refusal. He just said, I hate AI. That's not a reasonable reason to deny consent. So Timothée Chalamet would have been not in a position to deny consent. So, and I think we're running over time already. Sorry for that. Here's the last bits. Again, something that actually happened, right? When shooting Rocky IV, Dolph Lundgren hit Sylvester Stallone so hard that he spent like about a week in hospital. And obviously what that did to production, you can all imagine, everybody running over budget and catastrophe, right? Again, that was reality, now fiction. If this movie was shot today, I mean, obviously, at the time of shooting, we did not have the capabilities of AI to have a digital doppelganger. Yeah? But these days, if we would, do a remake of Rocky IV, and the very same thing would happen, could the producer finish shooting using a digital doppelganger of Sylvester Stallone? I see some people nodding. Yes, you have listened. That's the truth. Yeah. So even though Sylvester has not given consent to usage of a digital doppelganger, just finishing the movies with the scenes and as per the script, which were intended to be played by Sylvester Stallone, if they just finish that using a digital doppelganger, that would have been allowed. And by the way, he would have been remunerated for this as well. And, the main problem might have been, if there would have been a digital doppelganger actually at hand, because to have a digital doppelganger, you have to have the data, the information of this person who is actually, to be swapped by this digital doppelganger, right? So also in this fourth example, the producer could have used AI and could have finished the movie. And that's about it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so very much. I have like one last follow-up question a little bit. I think there are several points that are very clear, but some that are a little bit open to interpretation. For example, this, what is a dangerous scene? If I would say I was playing Dustin Hoffman in Tootsie and he wears high heels and goes down a stair, someone could say,
that's dangerous.
You're not trained in using high heels, so that's something dangerous. Is this something that's open for people to argue about? Because obviously someone like Tom Cruise says it's not dangerous for me to jump from building to building because I'm Tom Cruise. So is this like one of the points where it's open to interpretation? Because everything else seems to make very clear cases and give really clear guidelines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is like the AI appendix is trying to put use cases out there, and obviously in real life every case is different, and every life is just different than law and than a contractual agreement. So it's all necessary. It's always necessary to interpret the current situation, and I think, to answer your question, what is a dangerous situation? I think that's kind of an objective question, right? And wearing high heels, I mean, it would be dangerous for me probably, but I would not probably. I would do it because but that would not be counted as a dangerous situation. So there's always a threshold of interpretation in any of these. But as you said, I think the whole AI appendix is, quite precise and quite clear and gives rather good guidance on what is possible and what can't be done. Because at the end of the day, you would always end up with a basic rule of law that consent is required. So there would be a discussion between the producer and the actor, and at the end of the day, the actor would always have the upper hand because the general rule says consent is required, and then the producer would have to, argue that, he's under some kind of permission as per the AI appendix.
So it's his burden to prove that even when consent is not given, that there is this need arising that breaks the rule of consent. So
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about contracts here, so burden of proof is a bit, so we're not in front of court, but yeah, you're perfectly right in saying that it's rather the producer who would have to, make his point than the actor to, make his to defend his position because he has the stronger right in that.
One last question. If you say that now end of June there is already a check in place to see how this is working out actually and talks again. I know it's always difficult to predict the future, but do you think that points in there are up for discussion, or is this something like a framework that you can expect to be in place a little bit longer?
That's hard to predict, but I would say, that's very personal. That's my very personal perspective. I do think that the terms and conditions are quite fair because, it is like they're not really that biased. Because obviously a producer, is not, the devil who wants to exploit the actor's performance, but he's has to put up with production, and yesterday night. What was it, Sebastian? He said like, well, I love AI because AI, doesn't complain about the coffee and doesn't show up late for work, and yeah, this probably applies to actors as well, maybe sometimes, I don't know. So it, there are certain interests of the production which I can relate to and which I can say like fair enough, so I think to answer your question, sorry, I think the terms and conditions are quite fair. And I don't think that the time that is passing actually allows to gather new experience. I mean, it's not even 1.5 years, and even the 6 months re-evaluation. I don't know what the people in the Productions Alliance, Producers Alliance, and Actors Union actually want to discuss in half a year, because I don't actually know if there will be use cases they could actually discuss in September. I don't know.
Maybe they just want to meet up and have a coffee.
Probably.
That's good.
It's always good to have a coffee.
Thank you so much for this insightful, practical view and usage of AI for actors and actresses.
We do have a question in the audience.
Okay.
We have a question in the audience. I don't know.
Yes, sorry. It's a very odd question. I don't know whether you covered it already, but coming back to the Bob Dylan example, let's imagine the actor said, yes, let's do it. I will ride the motorcycle, coolest thing ever. And the producer says, no, we're not going to do this. You're the highest grossing actor in the world, and we don't have insurance. Is he allowed to use AI, or is it his problem now?
You mean, can the producer override the decisions of the actor?
Yes, if he says it's too risky and the actor says no, it's not.
I think at the end of the day, yes, because the producer is in control of the production and the actor is in control of his personality rights at the end of the day. So it is up for the producer to decide to employ a digital replica, or to employ a stuntman, and that would be the case anyway. Even without questioning whether you would use AI technology or not. You could, like Sylvester Stallone could have used a body double already in the 80s, where there was no talk about AI. So that could have happened using stuntmen, using doubles just as well, without even looking at AI. So at the end of the day, I would answer your question saying it is up to the producer to decide whether the production wants to employ a stuntman. And at the end of the day, when editing, when cutting the film, using the work of the stuntman and the shoot, because that is his decision which scenes will come up on screen, right? So and if the producer wants to use the scenes shot with a stuntman, he can do this.
But without the face of the actor, then.
As we saw, it can be done. It can be superimposed because Timothée Chalamet would not be in a position to actually deny consent to using this, unless he has good reason. Again,
Like, I can ride the motorcycle, but okay.
Well, but as we said before, it's a case-by-case basis, and you need to have a look at all the details of the case to decide these. It's like questions which are where there's so many relevant issues in there, so you would have to look at everything, and it's easy to say like, yeah, he can ride a motorcycle, it's not dangerous at all, right? But can he ride a motorcycle and jump off a cliff? We don't know, right?
Hi, hello. Quick question. Thank you. That was very, very interesting. One question about the post-synchro.
Yeah.
I got several use cases in mind where in post-synchro it's not only about dubbing, it could be also rephrasing, because after a first edit, the film is not that clear, so we need the actor or actress in a way to stick to the role and to the script, but to add new dialogues. In that case, is it significant or is it part of the script, and what's the situation?
That's a tough one. I would say if it's in line with the role and if it's in line with the story and what the script actually wants to tell, then obviously that would be a significant change if you would have used at the end of the day you would have used a digital doppelganger, right? If you put in another scene. If you need more dialogue because it takes longer to express what is supposed to be said, for example, in French than it is in English or in German, right?
Correct.
I think that would be not a case of digital changes, modification, but it would more be a case of a digital doppelganger. And then you would have to ask, am I under these exceptions? As we saw, the exceptions for digital doppelgangers and digital embodiment, they are open. There are two examples given, but they're not, it's the language suggests that and other scenarios are possible. And that might be a scenario where one could say, okay, we use the digital doppelganger because we need it for to have the same meaning in French than we do have in the English original.
Right.
That could be a thing, but it's, as I said, it's a question of, we have to look at everything. Very lawyer answer, sorry.
So thank you very much for the insight. I'm taking over now.
Okay.
Applause for Jim Braff.
Thank you very much for having me.